Welcome in, everyone. We are so thrilled to have you with us today.
Yeah, it is. It's really great to be here.
If you are a regular listener, you already know the drill. We take a stack of sources, research, notes that have been curated specifically for you, and we distill them down to the most crucial, insightful nuggets of information.
Exactly. We sort of sift through the noise for you.
Right. We are on a mission to keep you well-informed, giving you multiple perspectives without that heavy burden of information overload. Usually our desk is covered in dense academic reports or sprawling historical biographies. But today, our custom-tailored deep dive is based on something entirely different.
Yeah, entirely different.
We are looking at a single, seemingly mundane web page, specifically a Wikipedia disambiguation page for the simple two-word phrase, on writing.
It sounds incredibly sparse at first glance, I know.
Yeah.
But when we really sat down and analyzed the source text you provided, we realized this single page acts as a microcosm of how human beings organize knowledge. It is a fascinating look at the invisible architecture of information that we interact with every single day, but rarely stop to think about.
That is the perfect way to frame it. Our mission today isn't just to read off a bulleted list of book titles. We are going to look beyond the basic text to explore the digital architecture framing it all.
Right.
We are going to look at the completely different ways three iconic American authors approached the exact same title. And we're going to dive into the subtle details of the platform's user interface, which tells its own story about how we consume information globally. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the very concept of the page itself. The source text gives us a literal, straightforward definition right in the middle of the screen. It reads, "This disambiguation page lists articles associated with the title on writing."
What's fascinating here is that word disambiguation. Let's really think about what that means in the context of human knowledge. Language is an inherently messy, imperfect vessel.
Oh, absolutely.
We have an infinite number of ideas, but only a finite number of words to describe them. Because of that limitation, language constantly overlaps. One phrase, like on writing, can represent entirely different concepts, different formats, different authors. A disambiguation page serves as a digital traffic cop. It stands at the intersection of our overlapping human thoughts and forces a pause, asking, hold on, which path did you actually mean to take?
We have all experienced that cognitive dissonance, right? Think about it. You're reading something online late at night, you fall down a rabbit hole, click a link, and suddenly you are staring at a page that has absolutely nothing to do with the context you just came from.
Yeah, the classic late-night deep dive.
Exactly. Its context collapse in real time. And our source text addresses this directly. It says, right there on the page, "If an internal link incorrectly led you here, you may wish to change the link to point directly to the intended article."
That single sentence is crucial because it reveals the underlying philosophy of the entire platform. Notice the phrasing, "you may wish to change the link." It places the power and really the responsibility directly into the hands of the reader.
Yeah, that's a huge shift.
It's an acknowledgement that this vast repository of knowledge is not static. If we look closely at the source text, we see menus for talk, learn to edit, community portal, and recent changes. The architecture of the page itself invites you to fix the broken paths.
I have to play devil's advocate for a second, though. Isn't there a danger in that? Handing the responsibility of repairing the navigational paths over to whoever happens to stumble upon the wrong link? It feels a bit like relying on a lost driver to fix the highway signs.
That is a very fair critique, and it is the central tension of any open source knowledge base. You are trading centralized, authoritative control for speed, scale, and democratization. The assumption built into that interface, the Learn to Edit button sitting right next to the content, is that the collective will eventually correct the errors of the individual. It is a highly optimistic view of human collaboration.
Which makes the actual content on this page so interesting because it is a list of individuals who spent their lives mastering solitary expression. Let's look at the actual destinations this traffic cop is directing us toward. Under the umbrella of on writing, the text reveals three distinct pieces of literature from American writers.
Right, the actual substance.
Exactly. First up, we have Stephen King's entry, which is listed as On Writing, a memoir of the craft.
Notice the contrast in that phrasing. Stephen King frames it as a memoir of the craft. He is linking the mechanics of writing directly to his own lifeblood. By categorizing it this way, the text implies that to truly understand the craft, you have to understand the personal, narrative-driven journey of the craftsman. It is an inherently subjective approach to teaching.
It is a compelling way to transfer knowledge because you aren't just getting a sterile list of rules, you're getting a documentary of someone's life at the typewriter. But then, right below that, the text points us in a completely different direction. We transition to Ernest Hemingway's entry.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
The title is simply On Writing. What caught my eye, though, is how it's described. It is just labeled as a story fragment. Why do you think that specific categorization matters here?
It matters immensely because of what a fragment implies about the nature of the knowledge being offered. A fragment is inherently incomplete. It suggests something that was broken off, left raw, or perhaps never fully realized. And the fact that the text specifies it as a story fragment means we're looking at something likely fictionalized or narrative-based rather than a direct, nonfiction instructional manual.
It stands in such stark contrast to a polished memoir. If King's entry is like walking through a fully curated museum exhibit of a writer's life, Hemingway's entry, at least how it's categorized here, is like finding a torn sketch in an artist's wastebasket. Both hold immense value, but they demand completely different things from the reader.
Exactly.
The fragment makes you lean in. You know you aren't getting the whole picture, so you have to actively interpret the genius at work.
That is a great way to put it. A fragment requires the reader to fill in the negative space. And the fact that this elusive, incomplete fragment shares the exact same digital real estate, the exact same search term as a comprehensive memoir, is a testament to the sheer variety of human expression. Which brings us to the third destination on this page.
Yes, the third option is Saul Stein's work, titled Stein on Writing, and the description here is the most utilitarian of all three. The text simply calls it advice for writers. It strips away the personal history of a memoir, it strips away the narrative elusiveness of a story fragment, and just offers pure, direct instruction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the taxonomy of learning here is simply magnificent. You have a single search term, on writing. And yet, look at the completely different tools the encyclopedia offers you based on what kind of learner you might be at that specific moment.
Yeah, it covers all the bases.
Right. If you want a personal, narrative-driven journey, you take the path to the memoir. If you want a raw, fictionalized glimpse into the mind of a master, you take the path to the story fragment. And if you just want practical guidance without the narrative framing, you take the path to the advice. 3 writers, 1 phrase, 3 entirely different methods of transferring knowledge.
It really makes you appreciate how rich our learning ecosystem is, and why context collapse can sometimes be a hidden feature rather than a bug. If this disambiguation page didn't exist and the platform just automatically redirected you to whichever book was most popular, you might completely miss out on the format that actually resonates with your brain.
You'd be locked out of your own learning style.
Exactly. The page forces you to pause and ask yourself, wait, what kind of knowledge am I actually looking for? We have talked about how this page organizes the writers, but how does the platform physically present this to the world? Because here's where it gets really interesting. I want to pivot away from the literature for a second and look at the actual digital canvas framing these words.
I was hoping we would get to this part of the source text. What we are analyzing isn't just a list of books. It is a snapshot of a full web interface. And that interface is bursting with metadata and information about the community that built it.
Let's look right at the top of the page. Nestled above these timeless literary entries is a community banner that reads, Wiki loves Ramadan 2026. Tell the world about Ramadan traditions. Join the global campaign to bridge knowledge gaps about Islamic history and culture. Participate now.
The juxtaposition there is striking. Think about the layers of information we are looking at. In the center of the page, we have static historical pointers to works by King, Hemingway, and Stein, established American literature. But framing that static history is a vibrant, urgent, time-bound call to action for a global community.
Yeah, the wild contrast.
And the stated goal of the banner is to bridge knowledge gaps about Islamic history and culture.
Which, on a macro level, is exactly what a disambiguation page is doing on a micro level. It bridges a knowledge gap when a user is confused about a search term. It shows an ecosystem that is constantly trying to connect the dots for its users, whether it is understanding a massive cultural event or just figuring out which book they meant to search for.
Building on that, the source text gives us an incredible look at how the platform prioritizes making that information physically accessible. This isn't just about what knowledge is available, it is about how the user is permitted to consume it. If we look at the appearance menu on the sidebar, there are several toggles. We have text size options, small, standard, large. We have width toggles, standard or wide, where the content expands to fill your browser window.
It is easy to take those invisible architectural choices for granted. We are so used to customizing our digital spaces that we forget what a deliberate design choice that is. The platform is prioritizing accessibility and user preference over a rigid, universal aesthetic. They are giving the user the power to literally reshape the digital canvas to fit their physical needs.
And that ties directly into the core philosophy that knowledge is only truly valuable when it can be absorbed. A vast encyclopedic collection of facts is useless if the text is too small for a visually impaired user to read, or if the screen layout causes excessive eye strain. It is a functional democratization of knowledge.
Though it is still a work in progress. The customization options list a feature called Color Beta, which gives the user the option of automatic, light mode, or dark mode. But there is a tiny, almost humorous note beneath it that says, "This page is always in light mode."
I love that detail. It is a wonderful reminder that this massive digital structure is constantly under construction. You have this grand ambition of universal customization, but the reality of the code means that for this specific page, you're stuck with the light mode. It humanizes the platform. Speaking of humanizing details, did you catch the birthday mode baby globe toggle?
Yes, it is listed under the Appearance menu, and it has an option to be disabled or enabled, complete with a link to learn more about birthday mode. It is such a whimsical touch. We tend to think of these massive online encyclopedias as cold, robotic repositories of data governed by strict rules. But then you see a toggle for baby globe birthday mode, and you're reminded that this entire infrastructure was coded by human beings who apparently have a sense of humor and a desire to celebrate milestones.
It highlights the dual nature of the site. At the bottom of the source text, we see the legal and technical scaffolding, Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0, license, privacy policy, terms of use. We see those links so often we just gloss over them, but they represent the highly formalized legal structure required to host a deeply organic, chaotic human community.
Which brings us to perhaps the most fascinating detail we uncovered in the metadata. It is a temporal paradox hidden right in plain sight. Let's look at the timeline represented on this single screen. At the very top of the page, the community banner is loudly promoting Wiki Loves Ramadan 2026.
Right.
It is looking ahead, urging people to participate in a global event for the year 2026. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the source text, it clearly states, this page was last edited on 12 June 2021 at 15.47 UTC.
Let's break down what that actually means for our experience of internet time. The timestamp notes was edited at 15.47 UTC, Coordinated Universal Time, which perfectly highlights the borderless global nature of this platform. But more importantly, the core content of this page, the list of books by Hemingway, King, and Stein, has been frozen in time since June 2021. Not a single comma in that main text has been altered for 5 years. It is a static time capsule.
But the website's infrastructure, the dynamic skin that wraps around that time capsule, is living in the present day of 2026. When you visit a web page like this, you aren't just visiting a single unified document, you are interacting with an archaeology of different temporal layers simultaneously.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The foundational text is an artifact from one era. The community campaign banner is dynamically pulled from another era entirely, looking toward the future. And the user's immediate physical customization, like turning on large text or attempting to use a beta color mode, is happening in the exact present second. It completely shatters the illusion that a digital page is a single, cohesive entity.
It really makes you rethink the digital spaces we inhabit every day. We started this deep dive looking at what seemed like the most boring utilitarian list imaginable. This disambiguation page lists articles associated with the title On Writing. That was it. But by just slowing down and reading the entire canvas, we uncovered a surprisingly deep philosophy about how we consume information.
We really did. We found a taxonomy of the varied ways humans share knowledge, through the personal journey of a memoir, the raw interpretation of a story fragment, and the directness of practical advice. We explored the tension between centralized authority and crowdsourced self-correction. We saw the invisible architectural choices that prioritize accessibility over aesthetics. And we observed the fascinating temporal layers of a platform that blends deeply frozen historical text with dynamic, forward-looking global campaigns.
It's all right there, hidden in the margins of a page we usually click away from in 2 seconds. So, to everyone listening, navigating information overload isn't just about finding the exact right link as fast as possible. Sometimes it is about pausing at the crossroads.
I couldn't agree more.
It is about appreciating the different perspectives, the memoirs, the fragments, the advice that you stumble upon along the way, because sometimes context collapse is exactly what you need to see a topic from an entirely new angle.
Knowledge is a deeply non-linear journey, and the disambiguation pages of the world, whether digital or conceptual, are the crucial maps that show us just how vast that journey can be.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something to take with you into the rest of your day. Think about the current project, goal, or defining trait in your own life right now, the thing you are most focused on. If someone were to create a disambiguation page for your life right at this very moment, what other completely unexpected, contrasting things might share that exact same title? And how would it completely change someone's understanding of who you are if they accidentally clicked the wrong link and ended up reading about a different part of your story? Think about the fragments, the memoirs, and the practical advice that make up the messy, overlapping architecture of your own existence. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep exploring, and we will catch you next time.